Good morning, students. Today I am going to teach you the chapter Metals and Non-Metals, which is given in your science textbook as chapter number 4. Now, first of all, what are metals and metals and non-metals? They are basically elements. All the elements can be classified classified into metals and non-metals. Metals, for example, iron, copper, tin, silver, and gold, etc., are hard and shiny in appearance, and non-metals such as sulfur, phosphorus are generally dull and not hard, dull in appearance and are not hard. There are also certain elements which shows both properties of metals and non-metals. These are termed as metalloids. Now, from electronic point of view, metals are defined as elements which form positive ions. Which form positive ions by losing electrons. They contain 1 or 2 or 3 valence electrons. For example, sodium contains 1 valence electron, which on losing this 1 electron forms sodium plus positive ion. Now, on the other hand, non-metals are defined as elements which form negative ions by gaining electrons. They contain 5 or 6 or 7 valence electrons. Valence electrons means electrons found in the last shell of an atom of an element. For example, chlorine contains 7 valence electrons and it gains 1 electron to form a negatively charged chloride ion. Okay. Now, elements with 4 valence electrons are normally metalloids. Now we will look after the occurrence of metals. In nature, most metals occur in combined state as minerals. Nearly all rocks that we know contain some kind of minerals which contain metals in them. Okay, those rocks, those minerals from which metals can be extracted profitably are termed as ores. Okay, so from these ores we used to extract metals. Now, occurrence of metals are in the form of oxides or chlorides of carbonates, just like we find sodium or calcium in the form of sodium chloride or calcium chloride or sodium carbonate or calcium carbonates in the rocks. On the other hand, the ores of other metals like aluminium, iron, copper or zinc contain mostly oxides, sulfides. For example, bauxite, which is aluminum oxide, iron pyrite, which is ferrous sulfide. Likewise, we find all these elements in the form of either oxide or sulfide in these rocks. The process by which we extract metals from these rocks comes under the category of metallurgy. Now, next, occurrence of non-metals and metalloids. Non-metals include hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, silicon, etc. So we will start with hydrogen. Hydrogen is found naturally in the air. It is found in combined form as a constituent of water also. Okay. Now, nitrogen occurs in the air as 76% of the combined air composition. On the other hand, it is also a constituent of minerals such as sodium nitrate and potassium nitrate. Next is oxygen. Oxygen is the most abundant element in the Earth's crust. Remember this line. Oxygen is the most abundant element in the Earth's crust. It occurs in the free state in the atmosphere, forming about 23% by mass, and in the combined state it constitutes about 89% of mass. Next is carbon. Carbon in the free state, carbon occurs as graphite, diamond and coal. Diamond and graphite are pure forms of carbon. Okay. Next is carbon is the central element of all carbon is the central element of all living matter. All living matter is composed of carbon in some form or the other. Next is silicon. Silicon is the second most abundant element in the Earth crust. It does not occur in the free state. It is always found in the combined state as silica and silicates. Next is sulfur. Sulfur occurs in the Earth's crust. In the combined state, it occurs to It occurs in rocks as metal sulfides and sulfates. It also occurs as hydrogen sulfide, which is present in petroleum and natural gas. Now we will look over the properties of these metals and non-metals. First we will see the physical properties of metals and non-metals. Okay. Now first physical property is physical state. Metals are generally solid at room temperature. Mercury is the only metal that is liquid at room temperature. Otherwise all the metals are solid at room temperature. Now non-metals occur as solid, liquid and gases in both the phase, but there is only one non-metal, that is bromine, which is liquid at room temperature. Others are either solid or gas. Next property of metals and non-metals is luster. Metals have a metallic luster. Luster means shine. They have a shiny appearance. Non-metals do not have a shine except iodine. Iodine is a non-metal which is shiny in appearance. It is an exception. Apart from iodine, graphite is also an exception, which is a form of carbon. Next property, hardness and strength. Metals are generally hard and strong. Exceptions are sodium, potassium, gallium, cesium. These are very soft metals, and so potassium and magnesium are so soft that it can be cut with a knife also. Now, non-metals are generally not hard and strong, but diamond, which is a form of carbon again, is the hardest substance known. Hardest natural substance known. It is an exception. Next property is malleability and ductility. What do you mean by malleability? Malleability is that property by which a metal can be beaten into sheets. This is known as malleability. And the property by which metals can be beaten into wires, it is called ductility. So metals show the property of malleability and ductility, while there is no such case with non-metals. Non-metals are neither malleable nor ductile, but they are brittle. Brittle means they are easily broken down. Next property is conductivity. Now conductivity refers to heat conductivity and electrical conductivity. If we see the metals, most of the metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. Okay, but in case of non-metals, they are bad conductors of heat and electricity. But graphite, which is again a form of carbon, is a good conductor of electricity. Okay. Next property is sonorosity or sonorous. Sonorous means something which makes sound. Okay. So metals are always making sound when they are hit by an object, but this is not the case with non-metals. Next property is melting and boiling points. Metals generally used to have high melting and boiling points due to their rigid structure. Exceptions are sodium, potassium and cesium and gallium. These metals have very low melting and boiling points. Okay, on the other hand, non-metals have low melting and boiling points. The exceptions are graphite and diamond, which are again forms of carbon, and they have very high melting and boiling points. The specific gravity refers to a property of non-metal, property which is a peculiar characteristic of metals. It means that usually metals have high specific gravity. For example, iron has specific gravity of 7.8, copper has specific gravity of 8.7, lead has a specific gravity of 11.3, and likewise. But exceptions are sodium and potassium. Both have a very low specific gravity, which is less than 1. Non-metals generally have low specific gravities. Okay. So far we have discussed about the physical properties of metals and non-metals. Now we will look over the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. As in the case of physical properties, metals and non-metals differ in their ability. We have seen that metals and non-metals are differing in their physical properties. In the same way, they also differ in chemical properties too. First of all, we will take the chemical properties of metals and non-metals by their reaction with oxygen. Oxygen reacts with metals and non-metals to produce oxides. Oxygen reacts with both metals and non-metals to produce oxides. But what is the difference? The difference is that metal oxides are basic in nature. That is, they form bases when are dissolved in water. While non-metal oxides are acidic in nature. That is, they will form acidic oxides when they are dissolved in water. Acidic oxides, you can say that they show acidic behavior, and basic oxides show basic behavior. Basic behavior refers to the turning of red litmus to blue, and acidic behavior refers to turning of blue litmus to red. Okay. Now next is reaction with waters. Metals react with water to form oxides or hydroxides and liberate hydrogen gas. For example, sodium reacts with water to form sodium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Magnesium reacts with water to form magnesium oxide and hydrogen. Okay, likewise, aluminium and zinc also reacts with water to form their oxides and release hydrogen gas. Now, non-metals do not react with water. Very reactive non-metals such as phosphorus, which catch fire when exposed to air, are therefore stored in water. Because non-metals do not react with water, that is why very reactive non-metals like phosphorus are kept under water so that it should not get burnt easily. Now next is their reaction with acids. Now metals react with dilute hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid to form the metal salt and liberate hydrogen gas again. This is a very important point of this chapter. Whenever a metal reacts with an acid, it always forms its metal salt, and liberate hydrogen gas. Okay, metal plus acid gives salt plus hydrogen. Okay, so for example, when sodium reacts with hydrochloric acid, it will form sodium chloride and hydrogen. Next, iron reacts with hydrochloric acid to form iron ferrous chloride or iron chloride and hydrogen. Likewise, aluminium, magnesium also form their chlorides and liberate hydrogen gas again. Okay. Now, non-metals do not react with dilute acids. Okay. Now, next, reaction with bases. Only some metals such as aluminium, zinc, and lead react with strong bases such as sodium hydroxide and release hydrogen gas. Only very few elements like aluminium, zinc, and lead react with sodium hydroxide to liberate hydrogen gas. Otherwise, most of the metals do not react with bases. Okay. On the other hand, reaction of non-metals with sodium hydroxide is very complex, which you will study in your higher classes. Next is, now here you can see a comparison of physical and chemical properties of metals and non-metals. On the screen you can very clearly see that physical properties: generally solid at room temperature, solid liquid gas at room temperature. Metals, non-metals. Metals again generally hard, non-metals comparatively soft, generally have high density in metals. We find generally have low density in non-metals. Likewise, all these properties are given in this table form. Whatever we have discussed in the physical properties of metals and non-metals, and as well as in the chemical properties of metals and non-metals, here this table covers up those things in a very short manner. Now next is reactivity series of metals. What is reactivity series? Reactivity series is an order of reactivity of metals. It means that the most reactive metal will be placed at the top of the series, while the least reactive metal will be placed in the bottom of the series, and the rest are found in between the topmost and the lowermost metal. Okay, this is known as reactivity series. Why do we need to create this reactivity series? We need to create this reactivity series just to understand the displacement reaction. which is going to be discussed further now. Now, what is displacement reaction? A metal can displace another metal placed below it in the reactivity series, but cannot replace a metal placed above in the reactivity series. This reaction in which one metal replaces another from its solid solution is known as displacement reaction. Whenever a metal displaces another metal from its solid solution, the reaction is said to be displacement reaction. For example, when magnesium reacts with copper sulfate, it will form magnesium sulfate and copper. Here, magnesium is more reactive than copper, so it has displaced copper from copper sulfate to form magnesium sulfate, and copper is now separated as a single element. Likewise, zinc reacts with copper sulfate to form zinc sulfate and copper. Copper here again displaced from copper sulfate from copper sulfate in the combined form to the elemental form copper, and the zinc, which was earlier in the elemental form, now takes the place of copper sulfate, takes the place of copper in copper sulfate and form zinc sulfate. Okay. Now we will look some uses of metals. For example, iron. You see that iron is a very widely used metal. It is used to form doors. It is used to form bridges, nails, bolts, chairs, chains, etc. Okay, it is a widely used element. Next is use of copper. Copper is used to make electric wires. Copper is also used to make utensils. Copper is used to make alloys. Next is aluminium. Aluminium is also used to make electric wires. Apart from, it is also used for packaging food. You know, aluminium foil. Aluminium foil is used for packaging food. What is aluminium foil? Aluminium foil is the malleable form of aluminium. Next is zinc. Zinc is used in devices, those pencil cells which you use in your remote TV remotes are the battery which you use in TV remotes have zinc in it. Okay. Next, zinc is used in galvanization of iron, which we will discuss later in this chapter. Other metals may include lead, chromium, nickel, titanium, mercury. Lead is used in making battery. Chromium is used in electroplating. Nickel is also used in electroplating. Titanium is a light, strong, corrosion-resistant metal, so it is used for making bodies of aircraft. Mercury, being liquid at room temperature, is used in thermometers. Now, uses of common non-metals and metalloids. First of all, we will take on metalloids. Silicon. Silicon is extensively used in electronic and computer industries for making silicon chips. You have heard about silicon chips in your computer subject. So these microchips and silicon chips are prepared by using silicon. Also, it is used to make waterproof clothes, greases and polishes, insulating materials for electrical appliances. These were the uses of silicon. Now, uses of sulfur. Sulfur is used in the manufacture of sulfuric acid and other chemicals. It is also used in vulcanization of rubber, which makes rubber hard enough to be used in tires. It is also used as insecticide and fungicide. Insecticide and fungicide are chemicals that kills insects and fungus respectively. Now, uses of phosphorus. Phosphorus is used in making malboxes and in firework industries. It is also used in the manufacturing of NPK fertilizers, for which you have heard in your earlier classes. Now, use of carbon. Carbon as graphite is used in pencil leads. Pencil leads which you use to write is made up of graphite. Apart from that, carbon in the form of graphite can be used for lubrication purpose also. It is a lubricating agent. Carbon as diamond is used in jewelry. Carbon as charcoal is used in water filters that we use nowadays. Carbon as coal is used as a fuel. Now, uses of hydrogen. Hydrogen is again used as a fuel, and it is also used in the manufacture of ammonia gas. It is very important in the extraction of metals like copper, lead and tin. Now, a very short description of noble metals. Now, what are noble metals? Noble metals are those metals which do not react with any other substance at ordinary conditions. For example, silver and gold are present at the bottom of the reactivity series. They are unreactive metals and do not react with water, acids and alkalis. Because of their non-reaction with these substances like water, acids and alkalis, they are considered as noble metals. One other noble metal is platinum. So that is why noble metals are basically used in making ornaments. Apart from that, gold and silver are also used for making gold coins and silver coins, and this platinum is also used for electroplating purpose, which will be discussed later. Now next topic is corrosion of metals. Corrosion. What is corrosion? Corrosion is the process by which materials such as metals are slowly eaten away when exposed to air and moisture. It means that their surface gets corroded or gets damaged due to the action of air and water. This process of damage is termed as corrosion of metals. One prominent example of this is rusting of iron. We all have seen that iron develops a brown coating over its surface when it is exposed to air and water for a longer period of time. And this rusting makes the iron material very weak. It can be easily broken, which is not possible when it was fresh or when it was not corroded. So rusting what does? Rusting of iron mainly corrode the metal and weakens it to that extent that it can be broken so easily. Okay, basically the rust, I'm referring to the rusting of iron. So what is rust? Rust is an iron oxide which makes the metal very weak. And corrosion is not only the case with iron only. Corrosion is also the case with other metals like silver. You have seen that silver jewelries always gets a black coating when used for a longer period of time. This black coating that silver develops is of silver sulfide. As you can see in the reaction, silver combined with hydrogen sulfide. This hydrogen sulfide is present in the air to form silver sulfide and hydrogen. Now how can we prevent this corrosion? We can prevent this corrosion through following processes. First of all, a very easy process is painting or applying oil. We should paint the metal objects with a paint, or we can apply an oil to protect from damage. Okay. Next, we can cover a metal with another metal by the process of alloying. Alloying with a metal which is less reactive to a more reactive metal will prevent damage of metal. Next process is galvanizing. What is galvanizing? Galvanizing is the coating of zinc over metals. Why zinc is coated? Because zinc is a very low reactive metal. So whenever its coating is done on other metal objects, the process is termed as galvanization. Next process is electroplating. In electroplating, what we do, electricity is passed and the metal, a low reactive metal, very low reactive metal is supposed to form a layer over a metal which can be corroded easily. That means that suppose that we take iron is electroplated so that it should not get damaged easily. A good example of this is nowadays you can see the taps are coated with chromium, so they have a very longer life as compared to earlier days when the iron nail gets choked or gets damaged due to rusting. Now with the chromium plating, the life of these taps are longer. Likewise, electroplating is done in other spheres also. Chromium electroplating is also done on steel furniture and bicycle handles also to prevent rusting. Next is anodizing of aluminium. A layer of aluminium oxide is formed on aluminium upon exposure to air. Whenever aluminium metal always develops a self aluminium oxide layer over it to prevent this corrosion. So we can use the same process by passing an electric current through sulfuric acid using aluminum as anode. Whenever we pass current through sulfuric acid using aluminum as anode and the metal to be anodized as cathode, then this process can be done. Next is alloying. Alloying is again mixing of different types of metals so that they get the different good qualities of different metals, and they can be made more stronger. A very good example of is this iron pillar at Delhi. It is just termed as iron pillar, but it is composed of other metals also, and this makes it a very strong metal, and till date it's not being rusted, and it is made approximately 200 to 300 years ago, but it's not rusted. This is a very good example of alloying which prevents rusting of iron. Now next, from alloying we can now moving on to alloys. What is alloy? An alloy is a homogeneous mixture of two or more metals or one or more metals and a non-metal. Okay, alloying is used to alter the properties of metals for our own purpose. Now, what are the benefits of alloying? Alloying can be used to increase hardness of metals. Alloying is used to make metals more resistant to attack by chemicals and atmospheric corrosion. That means that whenever we make alloy of metals, that alloy is very much protected by the attack of chemical and corrosion by the atmosphere. Okay. Next purpose is alloying is also used to change the properties of metals in other ways. For example, solder, which is an alloy of lead and tin, has a melting point which is much lower than lead or tin. This makes solder useful for joining copper wires in electric circuits. You have always heard that soldering of metal. What we do in soldering of metal, we just use a solder which is an alloy of lead and tin. This solder makes proper joints between copper wires that are broken in electric circuits. Okay. Now this table concludes the name of alloys: brass, bronze, solder, steel, stainless steel, German, silver, etc. with their constituent elements like brass consists of copper, zinc; bronze consists of copper, tin; solder, lead and tin; steel, iron, carbon; stainless steel, iron, chromium, nickel; duralumin, aluminium; copper, magnesium, manganese; magnesium, aluminium, magnesium; German silver, copper, zinc. It has certain properties. Mostly they are alloyed for making them hard and corrosion resistant. You can see very clearly that mostly alloying is done to make them hard. And likewise, brass is used for making utensils, electric goods; bronze is used for making statues, bearings; solder is used for joining metals; stainless steel is used for making utensils, surgical instruments; duralumin is used for making bodies of aeroplanes; and German silver is used for making utensils, electric heaters, etc. So now from here I conclude this chapter, and I hope you have understood this chapter. We will be meeting soon next. Till then, have a nice day and goodbye.